Studies show that 85% of people who struggle with anxiety, overwhelm, and mental fog have one thing in common: they never write anything down. Not goals, not thoughts, not feelings. Nothing. And the cost of that silence is far greater than most people realize. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover why journaling is one of the most scientifically validated tools for mental clarity that exists today. We will cover the history, the brain science, the specific techniques that actually work, and the one insight about journaling that most productivity gurus completely ignore, because it challenges the idea that journaling is supposed to make you feel good. Stay with this one. It matters. The practice of writing down your inner life is older than most people think. Ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius kept detailed personal journals as a daily discipline. His private writings, now published as meditations, were never intended for an audience. They were raw, honest, and deeply practical. He was not performing wisdom. He was building it, one sentence at a time. In Japan, a form of personal diary writing called zuihitsu, which translates loosely to following the brush, dates back to the 10th century. The Japanese noblewoman Sei Shonagon kept a pillow book of her observations, frustrations, and reflections that scholars still study today. People across cultures and centuries intuitively understood something that modern neuroscience has only recently confirmed. Writing about your inner world changes your outer world. The research is striking. A landmark study by psychologist James Pennebaker at the University of Texas found that people who wrote about emotionally difficult experiences for just 15 to 20 minutes a day over 4 consecutive days showed measurable improvements in immune function, reduced visits to doctors, and significantly lower levels of psychological distress. 15 minutes. 4 days. Those are not large commitments. But the results were lasting. Pennebaker called this process expressive writing, and it became one of the most replicated findings in psychological research. What was happening in those 15 minutes that produced such powerful results? Here is the answer. When you experience stress, trauma, or confusion, your brain stores those experiences in a fragmented and incomplete way. Emotions get tangled with partial memories, unresolved questions, and physical sensations. This creates what researchers call cognitive load. Your working memory, the part of your brain responsible for focus and decision-making, gets clogged with unprocessed emotional material. It is like trying to run a computer program while dozens of other programs are all running in the background. Everything slows down. Everything feels harder than it should. Journaling forces you to translate those fragmented internal experiences into language. And that translation process is neurologically transformative. Brain imaging studies show that when you put feelings into words, a process called affect labeling, the activity in the amygdala, which is your brain's threat detection center, actually decreases. You are not just venting on paper. You are literally regulating your nervous system through the act of writing. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation, becomes more active. You shift from a reactive state to a reflective one. That shift is mental clarity. That is what you feel when you close the journal and suddenly see your problems more clearly than you did before. But here is what nobody talks about when it comes to journaling. The discomfort is the point. Most people start journaling and expect to feel better immediately. When they do not, they quit. But the science tells a different story. Pennebaker found that people often felt worse during and immediately after expressive writing sessions. Their distress scores temporarily increased before they decreased. The writing was pulling difficult material to the surface. That is exactly what needed to happen. The clarity comes after the discomfort, not instead of it. If you have ever tried journaling and felt like it was not working, it is possible that it was working and you stopped just before the breakthrough. So what does effective journaling actually look like? There are several evidence-based approaches, and they serve different purposes. The first is expressive writing, which we have already covered. You write freely about your most pressing emotional concerns without worrying about grammar, structure, or making sense. You write for yourself and no one else. This approach is specifically powerful for processing grief, stress, and unresolved conflict. The second approach is reflective journaling. This is more structured. You ask yourself deliberate questions. What am I avoiding right now? What would I do if I were not afraid? What does the wisest version of me already know about this situation? These questions bypass your surface-level thinking and access deeper insight. Research from Harvard Business School found that employees who spent 15 minutes at the end of each workday writing reflective notes about their performance improved their results by 23% compared to a control group. 23% improvement from 15 minutes of reflection. That is not a small number. The third approach is gratitude journaling, and while it has become almost cliché in the wellness space, the research behind it is solid. Psychologists Robert Emmons and Michael McCullough found that participants who wrote about things they were grateful for weekly reported higher levels of well-being, more optimism, and fewer physical complaints than those who wrote about daily hassles or neutral events. The mechanism here is attention. You become what you repeatedly notice. Gratitude journaling trains your attention toward what is working, which creates a feedback loop of positivity that is neurologically real, not just emotionally pleasant. Now consider what happens when you combine all three approaches. You process what is hurting you. You reflect on what you are learning. You anchor yourself in what is good. That is not a wellness routine. That is a complete mental maintenance system. And it costs nothing except a few minutes and a willingness to be honest with yourself. Here is where the real-world implications become impossible to ignore. Mental health conditions are rising globally. The World Health Organization reports that depression is now the leading cause of disability worldwide. Anxiety disorders affect more than 284 million people. Pharmaceutical interventions help many people, but they are not accessible to everyone and they do not address the underlying need for self-understanding and emotional processing. Journaling is not a replacement for therapy or medication when those are genuinely needed. But it is a scalable, free, evidence-backed tool that can be used by anyone, anywhere, at any time. And yet less than 10% of adults journal consistently. That gap between what the evidence supports and what people actually do is one of the most important gaps in modern mental health. The consistency issue is real. Most people journal intensely for a week, lose momentum, feel guilty, and abandon the practice entirely. The research on habit formation tells us why this happens. People attach journaling to outcomes they can immediately see, and when those outcomes are not immediate, motivation collapses. The better frame is to see journaling not as a treatment but as hygiene. You do not brush your teeth because you are currently experiencing tooth pain. You do it because you understand that consistent small actions prevent future problems and maintain ongoing health. Apply that same logic to your mind. Write not because you are in crisis but because clarity is always worth maintaining. The most successful people across a remarkable range of fields have used journaling as a core practice. Winston Churchill journaled. Albert Einstein journaled. Oprah Winfrey has spoken publicly about her decades-long journaling practice. Businessman Richard Branson credits consistent note-taking and personal reflection with helping him process decisions and stay mentally clear through the chaos of running a global enterprise. These are not coincidences. These are people who understood that the mind, left unexamined, becomes a source of noise rather than signal. Journaling converts that noise into signal. So here's what you take away from everything covered today. Your brain stores unprocessed emotional experience as cognitive noise that slows your thinking and hijacks your clarity. Writing forces that noise into language, and that process neurologically shifts your brain from reactive to reflective. The discomfort you feel when you start is not failure. It is the process working. You do not need a perfect journal or a perfect method. You need 15 minutes and honesty. The research is not ambiguous on this. Journaling works.